Hi friends, welcome back or to the channel. I've been kind of a bad YouTuber lately, but I've been doing a bunch of homeowner shit, so that's, I guess, counts for something. So I now have a new sidewalk in the front yard, which is going to be really weird in the wintertime, being able to actually push my snowblower down the sidewalk, but whatever, that's what we've been doing. Also, got some things happening out here. Don't worry about that noise. The back side of the spinner catches just the very end of the valve stem, but I got some shorties coming for it. The valve stems that are in there are pretty dry rotted anyway. Let's see if I can get you guys a good look at them. See right there at the base, that's dry rotted and cracked. One more time. So they need to be replaced anyway. So I got some shorties coming for it to get it out of here before winter comes, because the mini Jeep has to be parked in here for the winter, because I don't really feel like letting the mini Jeep just sit out here and get full of snow, So I don't want to pull this thing out with this. No, I'm not talking about the masking tape. You guys remember how bad these fender caps are. They're all rotted out. They're supposed to be clear out here, but they're obviously not. They're all rotted out. This side is far less dramatic than that side, but whatever. I have been kind of intimidated to do this job because, for whatever reason, when I bought those fender caps, I just planned on cutting the end of the fender off and just replacing the whole cap. But there's nothing wrong with the metal here. Just this spot here, and from about right here over. And I think, honestly, if I just cut the pieces I need, like take my measurements, pretty sure I have the measurements over here. This guy. No. I know where the measurements are at. Hold on. Actually, I was just going to cut this off right here and then cut the fender off on these arrow marks and just recap the whole fender. But I honestly think that if I just cut this piece and that little guy, it's going to be easier for me to line them up, because the factory fender already has the shape and the length and all that fancy stuff. It's going to be easier to just cut these pieces off of the caps instead of trying to replace the whole cap. Also, because these fender caps only come down to right here, but the rust in this fender comes down to right here. Well, down to right there. So I'm going to have to make this little piece here and this shit up in here. It's pretty bad. Like where the fender actually spot welds to the inner structure here. It's pretty rotted out. You can see it down in here. And they don't make patch panels for all that stuff. So we're going to have to remake a bunch of the metal up inside there anyway. So this is going to be kind of a drawn out process, and I'm not really sure how much of it I'm actually going to film. I know for sure I'm only going to film doing it on one fender, because, if you watch one side, the other side is exactly the same shit, So I got to stop jaw jacking, because basically at this point I'm just procrastinating. Oh, you know what? No. Right or wrong, I don't know, but we're doing it this way, so pretty much just against the straight edge here. And this is good metal clear to right here, so we're going to go there and then right there. We will call it, hell, we could go with 4.5 right there. So right 4.5 right there. And right here at the peak, where it's just a little tiny bit, I will say this is a bunch of Bondo in this fender, but I can see bare metal right here, so we're going to go with 2.5. So 2.5 right there. Now, the rest of it is going to be way more difficult, but also somewhat easier, because this little piece here is still there, which you can see right here. You can see right here between my fingers where that spot weld was. Right in there. This is actually the original fender lip here. So this is a great reference point to go off of, as far as I know. So I'm going to go off of right here, back to, right in here somewheres. I guess that's pretty safe bet, but I'm gonna go this line right here, which is where that fender cap ends. That's where I'm gonna measure it, and then just like we did up here, just write the measurement right here of how far the good metal is from the actual rot, and then we'll go from there. We'll be back. Got our numbers put down here. Now I need to move them back a little bit. So we'll put 2.5 here, 4.5 here, and 3 back here. And we'll take our fender cap, we'll set it on here, kinda. Kind of lined up. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect, but kind of lined up. Feel me? Make sure we're into good metal, which this line is a bit generous. I could actually take this line back to like right here ish, but I wanted to move it all the way up because there's a spot weld right there. So I'm going to cut it up in here. And then all I got to do is drill that spot weld out. Anyway, let's check our measurements here. So from the end of the fender in, I measured it at 2.5 inches right here on the peak, which is a bit generous because I only marked it 1 3/8 inches. So let's see. Pull this off. And let's go 1 3/8 inches up, right there. And it's probably pretty good metal there, but you can see the Bondo in right here, right? So if I come up 1 3/8 inches, I'm going to be cutting right through that Bondo. So let's look up in here. And that may just be a skim, sitting on top of because it was all rotted out right here and I pulled a big chunk of Bondo out of this. This might just be where they feathered it back in. So we'll take this mark and we'll actually go up basically to 2 inches. So we'll adjust that mark. We'll call it 2 inches right there. This is back in place. Now, our measurement right here is 4.5 inches. And here, I got it measured to 4, which is pretty good. I'll probably still take it to 4.5, just to err on the side of caution. And then down here, I have it measured at 3 inches. And right there you can see my mark is dead on at 3 inches. So this one's perfect. This one I got to move, what did I say, a ½ inch? Yeah, this one will move back to 4.5. And then this one will move up to 2. And I'm going to cut this panel first. I just needed to confirm all my measurements and shit, just to make sure that everything was in place. And this one, I'll come up off the line, you know, ½ inch, and then I'll just fudge it in as we go. But I'm going to cut the patch panel first. Which may be a stupid plan, but in my head it's going to work, because I'm going to cut the patch panel first, then lay it over the fender and just trace where I cut it, then cut the fender to match the patch panel. Again, I don't know. It's been so long since I did body repairs or sheet metal work. I may have forgot some shit, and I may be right. I don't know. I don't remember. But we're gonna figure this out together. Maybe, I guess. I said we got to make this panel here, which is gonna be fun. We're gonna have to take this whole assembly and shit back out, but I'll just make a straight line cut here. A straight line cut probably right here where it rolls. Maybe above it a little bit. We'll figure that out when we get this fender cap off. But here you can see all this shit sitting in here. See all this stuff? That's why these fenders rot out so bad. I know I showed you guys this in the past, but you know, I gotta stop rambling and get my shit together and get to work. So I'm gonna make the adjustment here on the patch panel, go get something to drink, and then we'll get the grinders out. If you work out in the heat, Pedialyte's your friend. Trust me on this. Now, I don't know, marked. I made the correction for the rod out up here, which I was pretty close, you know, but got this one marked up. I'm going to leave this mark in the same spot, just move this one up. This one I have moved back 3/4 of an inch, almost all the way across, except down to right here. That's just kind of right there towards the end. So now, let's cut up a very expensive set of fender caps. I have triple checked all of my measurements. I had to adjust this one up a little bit because it used to be marked down here. I had to adjust it up to here because that little guy. Anyway, should go without saying, but if you're doing rust repair and you're cutting up patch panels, always make sure you cut more than you need off of your panel. Like, I have these marks, but I'm probably going to go, you know, ½ inch or so past the mark and cut this panel bigger. That way I can set it down on here and nibble this up if I have to make it fit here. Because talked all that stuff about coming up past my line, and you see what I did. I realized it about 3/4 of the way through that line, but it was too late, so I did it here. Now this piece is just going to patch in right there, like that. Naturally it's going to be a little bit more than that because, you know, it's got to fit, because it has to fit in line here. But at least this, now I can mark the fender where I need to cut it, which that cuts pretty good. So I'll mark that where I need to cut it, down through here, cut that, and we'll just start finagling from there. Look at that. Coming off in chunks. Terrible. Pretty bad. I totally forgot about that spot weld dent in there, but apparently I didn't need to worry about it because it just come right off anyway. Now, right there was my spot weld. You can't see it on this side, but you can see it on that side. I'd say that fender was pretty rough. Now this piece, under here, we need to come back, brother. Just that little tiny bit right there. See if you guys can see that. See that little tiny line right there? I gotta come up just a little bit more in order for that piece to fit back in there correctly. So I'm gonna just keep nibbling at this, and then I'll come back when it's time to actually put it in. So things have escalated a little bit. This whole big panel in right here essentially just fell apart. I started trying to move this one around in here because I'm just going to cut this piece out and make a little patch. Well, before I could make this cut, all of this happened. Which, you know, again, with the condition of these fenders, I kind of expected some rot. Maybe not necessarily as bad as it was, but I did expect some. But this is good though, because now that I'm in this far, I'm just going to take my grinder and cut right along where this metal rolls over down into here, because down here is good metal. I just need to cut here along this piece, run my flap wheel up along here, and then make me a good straight cut right there. And that'll be it for this side. Well, then I got to make it and shit, but we'll get there. So now, this is kind of why I didn't really want to start on this rust repair, because it's kind of a domino effect. You spend more time just cutting out rust because you keep finding it. So if you plan on doing rust repair, bring some patience with you. So I have this piece fitting pretty well, but I had to put this in order to get the line that I have to match here for this piece of metal that I'm cutting on both sides. On both sides. This one is going to be easy. It's just a little bend right here at the bottom, and then it's straight from here down to like right here, and then it's just a little bend down. Should be fine. This one's just going to be totally straight. Well, totally flat, I should say. Just have to make sure that I follow this line-ish. But I got to get those two pieces cut and put in before I can put this one on. So let's go grab some metal. So I have a bunch of little scrap pieces like this from projects I've done over the years, and this is a little thick for sheet metal repair, but it's pretty much the thinnest stuff I have. But little pieces like this are perfect for, you know, like shit like this. almost the perfect size. It's a little bit too small right there at the top, but I think I'm going to go ahead and just take this square off flush like this, and then we'll just utilize this piece to kind of finagle around in here a little bit, and I'll probably end up hopefully using this piece to fill in this little tiny hole right here at the top up here. So let's see what happens. It fits almost perfect. Got a little tiny gap right there at the top, but the rest of it fits pretty damn good. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of roughly mark it. Well, we'll go up in here and up in here, and then we have kind of a rough outline of where we need to cut it. And in here doesn't have to be perfect. I don't really care. It's going to be inside the fender anyway. I just need to make sure that I get the shape of the fender ish cut out of this piece. So now I got to cut this, and I'll take this tail off, and this little tail we'll use up in here. See? That's why I never throw away scrap metal. Shit always comes in handy for something. We're doing all right. We got a little bit of a gap here, but I ain't scared of no gaps. I did find out though that it's not a straight piece. It's got a little bit of a curve to it right here. So I just took and put it on the pole for my carport, and I just pushed it a little bit and gave it a little bend. Now we got to cut the fun one. And you can see the shape. It's got to come straight down and just make a little turn right there. So I'm going to try to get a measurement on this, and well, I'll get a measurement. I'm just trying to get a little bit of a heavy measurement, so to speak. That way it's enough that I can nibble it off and make it fit in here. So again, gonna be using my scrap metal, and yeah, it's about the right length this way. Pretty close. I'm gonna have to shave a little bit off right there at the end, but pretty good. Like up here at the top, it's almost perfect. It's not long enough this way, because if I could just put it in there straight, it'd be awesome, because all I would have to do is just cut it here to essentially just match this line here. But since it has to have that curve in it, I'm going to lose some size on my metal, and it's not going to make the turn. Maybe I'll try it. I'm pretty sure I'm right, but maybe I will try it, because again, this is just a piece of scrap that was sitting back there. So maybe I'll just set it in there like so, and I'll get my measurements here, and I'll just cut it and see if we can bend it around the pole or something and try to make that little curve in it. Probably not going to work, but we're going to try it anyway. Got our patch panel fitting pretty decent. A couple of small gaps in there, but I'll weld them shits right in. Our inner piece is not going to be as pretty. I should probably not be lazy and just make a new panel. I don't want to. I don't know why. I just, don't want to. It's whatever. We'll see what happens. I've just got this piece held in with a magnet for now, just so I can make sure that this is in the right spot. Pulling out. And I've also got a break right here that I need to weld up, because it's supposed to be in a little bit. So that's also going to alter everything, like the fitment of everything in here. is all going to be altered when I weld this crack back in. So, same way to eat an elephant, one bite at a time. You know what I mean? So, got the inner structure all done on both pieces here. Now, it's time to start getting this piece fit up, but I got to put a spot weld hole right here and down here. Ooh, buddy. Almost lost some flesh off the old thumb there. That'd have been a bad day for me. I don't know if it matters where the holes for your spot welds go, but we'll do one more up here at the top since it's going to be a seam anyway. I know those holes are a little small for spot welds, but shut up. Let me do it my way, okay? Because in case y'all forgot, I don't know what I'm doing. We're doing it anyway. You know what I mean? Now, my glovey gloves on because this is really hot. Knock all the cacas off my drill holes. Yeah, that'll do. Now let's just start getting her fitted into place here. I'm trying to focus on the important parts. This front edge right here has to be perfectly straight, and I'm going to say that edge right there does as well. So hello. So I'll tell you what, that fit up looks pretty alright right there. So let me grab my hoodus. Make sure we still feel good. Pop a tack. Maybe. Okay. Okay. And while we're at it, we'll stick one right there. We just need to pull it out just a C hair, maybe. Hold on. The seam this way is off just a little bit. There we go. Yeah, that seam feels nice. Let's get us another tack right here. Pretty alright. Compared to what I started with, it's like 64% better-ish. Well, update time. We have our panel in. It is, that was stupid, it's very hot. Got my spot welds all in. Now I just gotta wait for it to cool off a little bit, and then I'll take my flappy boy here, and I'll knock the big chunks off, and then you're supposed to come back with like a DA sander and 80 grit to metal finish it. But I think I'm going to get a little aggressive with the flappy tack and get it mostly smooth, because I'm sure there's going to be some holidays in those welds, which, you know, happens when you're doing welding, like body welding with the flux core. You get holidays in your stuff, that's fine. So I'm going to get a little aggressive with the flap disc to knock most of the weld down, and then yeah, we'll be back when it's time to metal finish it, because this is just one small patch panel. Hopefully this side goes a little smoother, but I'm not incredibly optimistic. However, it did have kind of a, I don't know, not an epiphany, but a plan. Because, oh, since I'm only using a piece of this, right, this piece here, maybe I can cut this, well, one of these two pieces off and use it to patch this stuff in here. Instead of having to rebuild this whole panel, maybe I could just take a piece of this, as long as the curve is the same, and make it fit up in here. Might be a decent thought. I don't know if it's going to work or not, but it might be a decent thought. Well, we got some holidays. This part looks good, but up in here, you can see them. Ow, this is like a undercut here. I probably won't fill that in. We'll just come back with a skin of Bondo and touch most of this shit up. But right there, you see that? That one is actually a hole. And right there. So I've only got 3 actual holes. The rest of these are just small pinholes where they're like undercuts or whatever. So is come back with a welder, because I burned through right here, so I kind of made a little bit of a hole right here, so I had to do a lot of welding and fill it back up. So I'm just going to come back in and touch in these few little spots, and then come back through with the grinder, knock them down again, and that's pretty much going to be it for this piece. Got our piece cut up here. It's going to just sit right there. Well, obviously back a little bit, but I've got us all marked up here where I think I need to make my cuts. So that silver line there, all the way up and out there. And I'll stop my cut right here, because I'm not sure if this patch panel actually goes all the way down there or not. So stop it here and we'll go from there. But once I get this cut, then we got to address this stuff in here, and that's going to be a different story. Got our fender cut up here. Slide this guy into place. You can see we're off a little bit there, so we're going to take a little bit more off of the fender. We're also off here. See where my cut stopped? So we're going to take a little bit more, probably down to that line right there that I initially drew, but we're not going to go too aggressive here. We'll bring our pencil out and we'll mark up a little ways, and then just kind of a blade width, pretty much out to about right here, I think. Let's see. And we're back. We've got more stuff cut out. Let's fit this guy in. Our fit up there is pretty much perfect, but as you can see, we got a little bit of ill fitment issues here. So I'm gonna have to come in here and push this up. Try to get this reshaped to match this curve here. So that's going to be fun. But the rest of it, probably going to have to take a little bit more off of this edge or this edge. I'm not sure which one, but one or the other. We're going to have to take some more off. But check it out. So the fit up's good there. It's actually great down there on the end. But can you see how big this gap is right here? Here, let me show you. Look at it. Just look at it. That's no dice. I'm pretty sure the rest of it will be fine though. The fit is pretty nice everywhere else. Like the cuts look good and everything. I just have to get this pulled up, which, you know, kind of like that. Got her fitting okay. A little aggressive on the cuts there. Still have my Gaposaurus here, but like I said, I can come in from the back and push that up as I go. My fit here is nice, all through here, well, pretty much until right there. So what we're going to do is I'll tack it here, probably right here on the corner, and then down here, and then I'll go right on the face where the magnet is actually sitting. I'll put one every inch or so until right there where the grinder mark stops, and then I'll come in here with a hammer because that's a little dent. That's the one I was telling you guys about that goes up. So I'll come back with a little hammer and I'll knock that thing down, and then that'll allow me to get my tacks clear to where this magnet sits through here. But this is going to be a mess. And I probably should get this fender nice and straightened out before I start trying to mess with the inside structure, because if I don't, then I'm not going to be able to get my hand up in there once I put this cap on. If the inside structure's in place, I'm not going to be able to get my hand up in here to push on this. Okay, do you remember when I told you guys I have no idea what I'm doing and I'm just kind of winging it? Come up with a plan. Got a little Jamie Foxx here, a little gap in the teeth, but we're dead on right here. Don't worry about this. Right here is what we're talking about. And if you go up the line here, you'll see we've got a gap here. It's level here, and we have this gap. So I think what I'm going to do when the time comes to start welding this is I'm going to just get a couple of good fat welds here on this corner. Hi, buddy. Probably one right back in here. And then I'm actually just going to push on this part of the fender and start tacking my way up, and pushing on this actually brings this part up to where it should be. And then hopefully by pushing this in and tacking it all, it'll bring this gap in a little bit closer, and that'll be a-okay. This has been a while, but I finally got half of my patch piece built. Fits pretty decent. It's too wide, like it pokes out too far. That little notch I put right there in the end is where I need to cut it off all the way across, because I don't have any noisy neighbors. So because I don't have any noisy neighbors, I have to become the noisy neighbor. It's like an unwritten rule. You know what I mean? Ta-da! It's in ish. Don't look at the welds, but it's in. Like I said, I'm still gonna have to come back through and cut the whole edge of it off. But now I have to make this piece here that's gonna make this taper, which this is the perfect size piece for that. Actually, probably flip it this way. Not that way, dum-dum. Like that. See? That piece should work perfectly. I just need to take a pencil. And mark along this line right here where I need to cut it, and then obviously do the cutting. So it's been some time. Had to do some dad stuff. Frank's bike I tore it apart a couple weeks ago and repainted it for him. And the two bearings on the crank were different sizes. I didn't realize that when I put it back together, and he was having a bunch of problems with it, so I had to break off and go take care of that. But check it out. She's all tacked in. I know this little tiny piece I'm just gonna have to make with some sheet metal, but that's fine. It's only, you know, just a little guy. But y'all know I ain't afraid to jump in no gap here. But the fit up looks pretty alright for an idiot, you know. But I can smell dinner cooking, so I'm gonna throw a few more tacks on this thing just so it's good and secure, because you remember I told you the fender was flat. Well, check it out. Fender ain't flat no more, bud. I put some shape back in that thing. I wanted to throw all this stuff back on, all these trim pieces, just to make sure that everything still fits and, you know, does what it's supposed to, and it looks pretty good. That won't stay on there because I don't have any of the screws in it, but this interior trim piece fits up in there nice. I've got screws that go in here and right there. So it fits up in there like it's supposed to. And then that outer trim piece fits up nice. And I'll tell you what, for me being a total idiot, it actually fits pretty well. Maybe I'm not as dumb as I thought. No, I definitely am. Yeah. So now that I have this video out of the way, I can go ahead and knock out the easier side of the two off camera, and I can have music playing and all that fun stuff. So yeah, like I said, that's gonna do it for this one, guys. That's a quick and dirty fender repair. I massacred that $250 fender cap, but got all of the rust repair done. I did the inner structure in here, the outer cap I gotta finish weld it, and that's all. So yeah, and I still have, you know, scrap metal for the metal pile back there. Win-win. Yeah, I gotta clean up my tools and stuff and go inside and wash up and have din, and then I'll catch you guys on the next one. So yeah, remember guys, your dreams aren't gonna work unless you do. So don't be afraid to tackle something that's you've been intimidated by for a while, because I think you'll be pleasantly surprised when you realize that it's easier than you thought it was going to be. Very tedious, but easier. Thanks for watching, guys.